Hey, it's Digi and May!
Hey.
Here to do a special anime review because we watched a movie, not as part of Finish or Fail. We saw it in the theater in a limited showing
Yeah.
at the Little Theater in
The
Rochester.
Little Theater in downtown Rochester.
We watched this one. It's Koe no Katachi, or A Silent Voice. Or The Shape of Voice, if you want a translation that makes sense and is in the movie, literally.
Yeah, why was it in the movie?
It's because that's the proper translation, the
Yes.
shape of voice. So they have it as English words in the movie. It says the shape of voice, but the American title is A Silent Voice.
To be fair, A Silent Voice does sound like a better movie title,
Yeah.
but I also think it sounds cliche as hell.
Yeah, the shape of voice sounds more artistic. Like it sounds
Yeah.
more like film festival-y, you know?
I feel like if I had heard this movie was called The Shape of Voice, I would have been more excited to see it.
Same. I think so too. So we saw this movie. We both, I would say overall,
It's a good movie.
Enjoyed
It's
it.
a good movie.
Well, would you say you enjoyed it?
I didn't love it.
Okay.
I did have fun going to go see it.
Yeah. First, the first thing to be said about this movie, before we even talk about it itself, this movie's long as shit
And sad as balls.
and very emotionally draining. It is not an easy watch. Like,
No.
this, and a lot of people have criticized this movie that it should have been a TV show. It would have been able to flesh out a lot more stuff. And I understand people who say that. We'll get into that later. But for me, the main reason that this could have been a TV show is just to have breaks. Because it feels intense. It's just like stuff happening nonstop for 2.5 hours. And it tells such a breadth of storyline that, like, I don't know. It feels like a story that wasn't made to be a movie, you know?
I definitely got that feeling, especially with it having such a large cast. I don't think that did it any favors in condensing it down to like how long is this movie?
It's like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
2 hours, 20 minutes, something like that.
All I know is my ass was hurting.
Yeah. Well, they weren't the best chairs in
No,
the
we were in the
little
very
theater.
back.
We could have snuck into this movie.
Yeah, they didn't check our tickets.
We'll start with our theater experience. We went into like the there's like a place where you buy tickets. It was like a separate building that we happened to go into. And they printed out the tickets, and we went around to the front building, and no one checked them. We just walked into the theater. We were like,
Yeah.
oh, man. And it was pretty packed.
It was really packed. I think a lot of it has to do with Rochester is like known for being the city of the deaf. And I think there are a lot of people there who like were either professors at like RIT or something who...
City of the Deaf?
Yeah, we have like a big school for the deaf, and we have a really high deaf population.
It sounds like you're saying death.
Is there
deaf.
deaf?
Deaf.
I've never
Deaf.
really thought much about the pronunciation
Yeah.
of disabilities like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I did not know this was the City of the Deaf.
Yeah, I was thinking about
That's
that when
interesting.
we were leaving the theater because the people we were sitting next to were like really old.
Yeah, well, there was definitely like most of the theater was
Most
definitely
of the theater
anime
were,
crowd.
Yeah, it was like otaku
like
people.
strictly, it looked like we walked into an anime convention.
It smelled like Proactive.
It smelled like Proactive, but there were like real old people there.
Yeah, they
too.
were. It was a really interesting mix of people.
Yeah,
It was people you would expect to go see like an artsy fartsy film, like
right
nerds.
alongside a bunch of otaku and shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of whom obviously knew what this movie was. Like, they weren't just seeing it because it was anime. Like, they knew this is the big like tour de force film or whatever coming out of Japan that everyone's been clamoring for, you know.
Yeah.
The worst part of the theater experience for me was the group of guys on our right. We were in the very back. We're like back row. And there's a group of guys who come in late, first of all, and sit on my right. And they're fucking noisy, trying to move around and shit. And then one guy keeps saying throughout the movie, like, I guess the other guys were like whispering something to him, but he's one of those like deeper voiced guys who's kind of loud. And he keeps going, something, Yamada Naoko. And I was just like, shut up. Shut up.
If
No
I had
one
heard
cares.
him, I probably would have told him. To
No
shut
one
up.
fucking cares. He did it like 3 times.
God.
Like twice early on, and then once like way later with no provocation. Over like, not even scenes that I felt were particularly Yamada Naoko-ish. Like, There was one scene where I think it was like when the sister is wearing the school uniform, like when she turns up in the school uniform, and he was all like, "Oh, something Yamada Naoko," and I was like, "Shut the fuck up, dude! At least say it during shots of legs, something she's like known for as like a meme, you know?" Yeah, I wanted to fucking fight that guy, just because it's like I know why he's doing it to flex his knowledge. Oh, I know the name of a person.
Little does he know, he's sitting next to Digibro.
Yeah, who is a huge
if he
Yamada
really
Naoko
knew
fan.
His shit, he would know who he was sitting next to.
Yeah,
he's for sure seen your videos.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone has seen my videos, whether or not they like me or like watched more than one relevant. Is a different story.
It's not even relevant.
We were not recognized though.
I was
we
so
were pretty
afraid.
in and out.
I was like, okay, we're gonna be real low key about this.
Yeah.
I do not want to be seen.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling that.
I didn't even warn anybody we were gonna be there. Yeah. You know, I didn't put out the word. But yeah, so we went and saw it, and it's again, it is a long and taxing film, but it is beautifully made. It is extremely well directed, exceedingly well animated. It is beautiful to look at, for sure.
It is definitely technically a masterpiece.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, masterpiece is a word that floated through my mind a bunch of times. However, I think that it struggles under the fact that it is an adaptation of a manga, and one that was not really plotted in such a way that makes sense as a movie per se.
Yeah.
And while I do think, because there's definitely a lot of liberties taken with the source material, and I think they're like, I haven't read the manga, but I glanced at, because people, so one of the things surrounding this movie is that anybody who read the manga, because the manga was already popular.
Yeah.
It's a beloved manga. Everybody who loves the manga hates the movie, because they say it cuts out too much stuff. It just isn't complete. You know, like it shouldn't have been a movie as compared to a manga. But I looked up the manga, and the first pages are when the girl walks in and says, "I'm deaf," to the class. Like when she holds up the papers and says, like, "If you're going to talk to me to the papers." The movie has such a better opener than that. Yeah. Like, because it opens with the main character getting ready to jump off a bridge and kill himself. He's just made all the arrangements. He's going to do this thing. And that immediately connected me with that character way more than I would have been if the movie had started off with him as a kid. Because, like, the whole time, I knew what the plot of the movie is. I don't know, how much did you know about the plot?
I knew there was a girl who couldn't talk. I didn't know anything else.
I knew that it was about a guy who bullies a girl when they're kids.
I knew about the bullying, and the girl couldn't talk. And I
knew that it, like, somehow, like, that their relationship, like, inverts. That, like, when he's older, he wants to be, like, he feels bad about whatever happened in the past. I didn't understand exactly how he got to that point. But the fact that it starts off with him, like, getting ready to jump off a bridge, like, set me up with, okay, what we're about to hear is the story of how we got here. How did we get to this guy wants to kill himself? Which I want to know, because I'm a guy who's tried to kill himself before, you know? So for me, I'm always fascinated with suicide and suicidal characters, and I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's this guy's deal. What happened, you know? How could a poor man find himself in this position? Someone who we already understand immediately works hard. Because he leaves a stack of money for his mom, says, "Here's the money I owe you."
He's hella young.
Yeah, I didn't know how young he was supposed to be.
I thought he was older. I thought he was going to be older. I was surprised that
it's
like
not
actual age.
Yeah, not until we actually see him at school did I know he was under 20.
Yeah,
you know?
I thought he was for sure like a college student or college age.
And I'm really glad for that as well. I think they did that as a trick, because if you walked into this movie knowing he's in high school, then, like, you would have expectations set up.
Yeah, because it's in a high school setting.
Right.
They were very specific and careful to show scenes that, like, would not directly tie him to being a high school student. Like, he was at his part-time job. He was, what else was he doing?
He's
like, all of his preparations, like, he went to a bank. He did, like, adult things.
Yeah, all very grown-up things, which shows you that this is a man who's, like, achieved maturity in his life, but is going to throw it away.
Yeah, we're meant to think of this as, like, an adult.
Right. And I'm really glad with that because, again, that helped me connect with the character more. I'm an adult. I see people doing Banks stuff. I go, oh, Banks. Oh, I'm an adult. Let me get on my dick and beat off to Banks. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but...
You got excited because you didn't think he was a high schooler.
Yeah. And then even when I found out he was a high schooler, I was okay with it because I'd already internalized the idea that he's
he's not just dealing with like high school drama. He has like an adult,
which unfortunately is what eventually becomes my biggest problem with the movie is that he is dealing with high school drama in the end, big time, like most of the movie. But we'll get to that. So the first part of this is just the history of the relationship between this kid and this deaf girl and the other kids in their class, where and the way it progresses was really interesting to me because of the fact that they are not mean to her at first. Like, at first, everybody's, like, other than the kid who's just kind of like, whatever. Like, him and the dark-haired girl just kind of don't care about her.
At first, everybody's like, oh, she's special. Let's learn more about her.
They're excited to write in her notebook and stuff. They want to be friends with her. But then, like...
once they realize how much effort they have to put into, like, maintaining a friendship or just interacting with her, they lose interest.
And what I liked about that is that it was not for no reason, and it was not just because she's different. Like, because I don't think kids are quite like that. I don't think they'll just bully you because you're deaf. Like, my initial, like, if I met a deaf person, and they wanted to be friends with me, like, my first reaction is going to be like, whoa, cool, which is how it is for most of those kids. They're like...
I don't know. I think most middle school age children are just
elementary
evil.
School age.
Are they whatever.
Yeah.
And any kids between the age of, like, 7 to, like, 13 are evil. That's the phase of evilness.
Maybe. I don't disagree with you, but I don't...
As someone who was, like, bullied relentlessly during that period of my life...
I was also bullied relentlessly during that period of my life. Just to set that up, because we're definitely going to talk about that. We were both bullied, so this movie definitely is something we can connect with on that level. Which, I mean, there's tons of anime about bullying, and most of the time I hate it. I'm not a huge fan of bullying as a plot, No,
because it's not a plot.
Yeah.
It's like a fact of life.
Well, because it's always the same story.
Yeah.
Like, if you tell a bullying story, it's gonna be what it is. A bunch of kids
stories are either written by somebody who was bullied, and it's kind of like a pandering story, or written about somebody who was never bullied and, like, showing the horrors of bullying.
Yeah.
And, like by somebody who's,
those
older
are the only two
and
options.
super detached.
You have to either have been bullied or not have been bullied.
I feel like there's nobody who's just, like, in a neutral position. It's usually people who are, like, older and, like, super against it. Like,
oh, yeah.
I don't know. In high school, like, there was a huge anti-bullying campaign, and it was, like, kind of run by people who didn't understand, like, how
what
people
actually it is.
What bullying was or what it looked like. And then...
yeah, certainly the way that bullying is usually portrayed is, like, not what actually happens to people.
It's a misunderstanding of, like...
I don't even know, because, like, with anime, and including this movie, bullying is portrayed in such a cliche way that I don't know how much of it's real. Because it's always the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's always your shoes get hidden.
You also have to look at, like, especially in anime, it's a different culture, and bullying is going to look a lot differently.
I mean, from what I understand, Japanese bullying is super hardcore.
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely the case. And, like, there's lots of Japanese live-action films about bullying. Like, bullying is a big topic in Japanese media. But it's always the same techniques. It's always hiding the shoes, drawing on the desks, like, putting paper in your desks, damaging your things, especially throwing them out the window. Fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode 1. Probably the first bullying anime I saw. Because in early Yu-Gi-Oh! Is largely about bullying. It's about fucking Joey and Tristan beating the shit out of Yugi and throwing his Millennium Puzzle in the water. And then they later jump in, and, like, that's the big symbolic moment of them bonding with him, is that they jump into the pool to get the thing. What happens in this movie? He jumps into the pool to save her notebook. Like, are these cliches actually happening at this point? Or is it just like this is the cinematic language of bullying in Japan? It's a difficult question, and it makes it just slightly harder for me to take seriously. And in this movie, they kind of brush past all of it by showing it in a montage. you know?
Which I appreciated,
Yeah.
because if they like dwelled on the bullying too long, it would have definitely been cheesing it up for me a little.
Yeah, and the scenes that had the most impact that weren't in the montage are not as like that. Like, well, there is the scene of him throwing the notebook in the water, but like the part where him and the boy and the girl just fucking fight, I liked that a lot. Where it just turns into like her beating the shit out of him. Like, I'm trying so hard. Like, why are you fucking doing this to me? Which was great because it's the first crack in the facade moment too. That like the whole time it's portraying her as she just wants to be friends. Like, all this stuff, bad stuff's happening to her, and she's like, look, I'll forgive all of it. I will forgive everything. I'll forgive everything. And then that's the moment where she's like, you see that, yeah, of course it's all damaging her badly, you know, but she's just trying to fucking deal with it. But, so there's some powerful scenes in there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, that was when I first cried. It was definitely like the one scene where he throws sand in her face and he's like,
oh yeah,
just go away, you're weird, because like that hit way too home for me.
For me, it was right before that.
Yeah.
When the girls are just standing at the play place, and then she comes up and they just kind of walk away, and that's the moment where it's sunk in that like no one's really done anything wrong. They just are like, being friends with you is too much of a hassle, so we don't want to, you know, which is totally real. And like, at that stage, I couldn't even really fault them. It was like, who wants to do that? You know, like, there's lots of people I won't be friends with because I don't want to have to deal with them. You know, because, like, it's just too much effort to be your friend. So I'm just like, sorry, man. You know, and, like, that was where it got to me. When it got into, like, escalated into actual bullying, it's like, well, now I just feel sorry for the girl. Like, you know, now they're just being assholes. Like, there's no justification for it at this point. But, you know, we get our bullying montage and everything, and eventually she transfers out of the school. Can't take it no more. Can't blame her.
Well, it wasn't her. It was because she was losing her hearing aids, and her mom was like, you can't go to the school anymore. It's costing us too much money.
Right. You getting bullied is... And, of course, she's probably not willing to say who
No,
is
she
bullying
doesn't
her,
want to say who it is.
Yeah, because
she wants to be friends with them.
Yeah. And, yeah, so... did you have anything else you want to say about the bullying section of the film? Like, how it related to you? Because I've seen some people say that that the bullying in this was, like, comical or over the top. And I would say to maybe a little, but not by that much. Like,
I don't think it was that, like, exaggerated or cartoony.
And I mean, it's a super cut of, like, almost a whole year.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like she was just all in one day getting like 18 bad things happening to her. Like,
this happened over a period of times. Like, like all the different pairs of hearing aids that she lost. Like, she lost like 8 pairs. That's probably gonna be a couple months of school.
Yeah,
I
always...
thought it was like, I thought the bullying was handled pretty well. I thought the opening segment was like...
I often had my book bag or jacket taken from me and passed between kids. You know, just, like, keep away from the guy who's weak and can't do anything about it, you know? I wore glasses, so kids always took my glasses. It was usually just kids taking something and holding it out of my reach, knowing I won't do anything, you know? Or just, I don't know. I never really got, like, beat up.
I never was, like, physically beat up, and, like, there wasn't a lot of physical things that happened to me. It was mostly, like, kids like leaving when I'd enter a room or spreading rumors about me. Like, the kind of bullying I experienced was a lot different, and I also was a little bit older. Did
you get any of the really... Because I was about the age of these kids when I was bullied the harshest. Because I was bullied the harshest when I went to the gifted school, ironically.
I mean, yeah, I went to like a gifted school too, and that's when I was bullied.
And the one I remember the most for being the most like warped, like whoever, like the kid who did this is definitely like weird for having done this, is that he took his own yearbook and like defaced a bunch of kids, like he had like drawn like you know, swears and stuff, or like drawn over them to make them look bad, and he took it to the teacher and said that I had done it. Like, that I had defaced his book. And the people he'd chosen, it was, like, himself and other kids who I guess he thought I would have a problem with. Like, popular kids or, like, ones who he thought had bullied me. But I didn't know any of them. Like, I
Yeah.
literally told the teacher, like, I don't even know who these kids are that he's defaced, because I didn't pay attention to anybody. Like, I didn't even really know who he was. I knew he had a problem with me, but, like, I didn't know why or, like, what. So for me, it was just like, what the fuck is this? And, like, nothing ever came of it. The teacher was just kind of like, okay, well, this is just, like, weird, so I'm not dealing with this, you know? Don't know whatever happened to that kid, but that's the kind of bullying that I see happening in stuff like this, like the more psychological attacks on somebody for just, I don't know, existing.
Yeah, just for existing and not fitting into like what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
I wore Pokemon shirts. Pokemon wasn't cool anymore.
I tried my hardest to like blend in, but I
did not.
still like isolated.
I made no attempt.
I was ostracized as fuck.
So yeah, we relate to the bullying. But this movie takes an interesting turn where the main kid, the main guy who bullies this girl, when it finally comes out, like the teacher like flat out like gets pissed at him, which I love that moment too. The teacher like is just like, fuck you, stand up and admit the truth. And this kid gets up and he blames everyone else for being complicit, which they were, but they immediately then turn on him. And now he becomes bullied. And he ends up getting it for way longer and ultimately harder than the deaf girl did. And there's this dude in my Discord who everyone's been arguing with because he hates this movie because he sees it that this kid did not deserve redemption and that bullies don't really turn around like he did. And he was like, we didn't really see him turn around. And I'm like, dude, we did see him turn around. It was being abused for 4 years. That's what turned him around. Like, this kid went from being a bully, and for what it's worth, his brand of bullying was like mostly just kind of like out of wanting things to remain a certain way, like feeling like this girl was in the way of the fun he was having.
Yeah, he wanted her to go away.
Then he just gets ruthlessly beaten down by everyone. You know, has no friends, no one's defending him. It follows him and haunts him through middle school to the point where he gets to where he just can't even look at people. He's just like, he just has crippling social anxiety and he blames it all on himself. You know, it's like, oh, I did a bad thing and this is what I deserve, you know? Mm-hmm. So like, to me, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what would happen. Yeah. You know, you become this way.
Well, if you're bullied afterwards.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, if you get bullied, like, because she ends up the same way. They both kind of turn out the same. They both were bullied, and they both turn into people who internalize that bullying and blame themselves. And I think there's usually, like, one of two responses to bullying. Either you blame the bullies, and you're an angry motherfucker. And those are the kids who might shoot up a school.
I definitely fit into that category.
Yeah.
I was
Or you blame yourself and hate yourself. You know, and I fell more into that category, I think. Like, I hated all the kids who bullied me, and I wanted them to be dead. But, like, ultimately, by the time I was in, like, high school, I had internalized the idea that I'm the weirdo. Like, I have never fit in, and it's my fault. I'm the one who's doing something different. I'm the one who's doing something weird. So it's not everyone else's fault that I'm, you know, gonna be ostracized this way. Like, it's my fault for being weird, so I should just shut up and not talk to anybody, you know? So that's why I connected with this character a lot. I was like, yeah, this is basically what my, you know, like, middle school to high school experience was. Granted, I made friends in high school quicker than he did, because he's, like, already far into high school. He's, like, at the end of high school, right? Mm-hmm. And he still hasn't made any friends. It's a little extreme.
I think a lot of the reasons why he hasn't made friends, though, is because he shut himself out. It's not because people are continuing to, like,
well, he also, differently from me, he's someone who, like, went and got a job and everything out of the guilt, you know, and, like, that's probably what he spent a lot of time doing, was just working and, you know, being more self-sufficient, because he's with a single mom, and I think that kind of comes out a little bit more in that kind of situation. Yeah, so that's the early part of the movie.
We didn't talk about the opening musical sequence.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Fucking weird.
Yeah.
So after the whole scene on the bridge, which is great, the scene of him, like, getting ready to kill himself, and before the bullying begins, there's one sequence of just him and his friends hanging out. And this is another part that's not in the manga, and I think it adds good context. It's like setting up what was life like for these kids.
It's like showing you like, oh yeah, this kid's a punk, and these are his friends. This is who this kid is.
Right. And he's a punk, but he's never been in a situation where that's been bad for somebody.
No.
You know, he hasn't gotten to where that's escalated to feeling like bullying.
He looks he's like a fun kid. Like I'd want to hang out with him.
He's a little bit of an asshole. I would have hated him as a kid.
Yeah.
I would have absolutely hated someone like that. I hated like loud, like aggressive kids because I was weak and feeble, and if you touched me, I bruised. And the kids like that are the ones who come up to you and go, "Hey, dork," and I go, "Ow, that really hurt." And they're like, "That didn't hurt," and I'm like, "You can't tell me that didn't hurt. I'm the one feeling the pain." You know, I hated those kids.
I mean, I did too when I was a kid, and like was afraid of my own shadow, and like was like, "It's a fire drill," and like I was like a complete dork, but.
So, but the thing, the noteworthy aspect of this scene is that it's set to the song "My Generation" by I don't know who, 60s rock band.
It's like a 60s like early rock and roll
kind of song. It felt really out of place.
Because it's supposed to be nostalgic. It's supposed to like be like, oh, this is the kid in like his natural habitat. Like this is who our character is. Pick a song, pick a 90s song, pick a Justin
or even song. Early 2000s. Like these kids. Like, the way the scene was really reminded me of 20th Century Boys, which takes place, like, it's about, similarly bounces back and forth through time, and it's about, like, this event that happened when these characters were kids, but they were kids in the 60s and 70s, and all the music is from that era. Mm-hmm. In this movie, it's, like, a punk song from the 60s, but it's kids in the, like, 90s or early 2000s. Yeah. And it's a punk song, and the aesthetic of this movie is not punk at all. Like, you're looking at these gorgeous... It's like the
opposite of punk.
Yeah. It's like this
it's
incredibly...
It's like watercolors.
Exactly. It's like this very beautiful, like, pastel, like, overly detailed, like... If I was imagining, like, a punk song, I'd want, like, the GTO opening. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the GTO opening, but, like, it's punk, you know?
I believe it.
This is not punk, and it was a really weird song choice. That was probably my biggest technical problem with the movie, like, in terms of, like, the production, is that song felt totally out of place to me. Anyway, let's wrap up the kids section. Yeah, this video is going to be long as shit.
Well, the movie was long as shit.
It was long as shit. So, so we grow up. Our characters are grown up. Something I really like is that this movie dives immediately into, like, the two of them meeting again. There was no beating around the bush. Because we already established kind of what the guy's deal has been up to this point. We don't spend, like, an overly long time having him, like, go through his whole day and then happen to encounter her.
Yeah, they don't show his stuff that we don't need.
Right.
Like, we already understand that he is a functional, like, guy.
And we understand that that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, going into this movie, you know this is gonna be a movie about these two reconnecting. So they just cut to the chase, and that's the first thing that happens, is these two reconnect. But it's, you know, it's like a small encounter, and we're gonna be moving on from there. And then we get, I don't remember if this is before or after that, but my favorite scene in the whole movie.
I think it was before it.
Is it?
I'm not sure. I don't really remember.
My favorite scene in the whole movie is the one where his mom said him and his mom are eating breakfast, and she says, "So how come you tried to kill yourself?" or something like that.
Yeah, while they're eating
breakfast. Or she
like...
she says like it's not how come you tried to, but she like sneaks in that he tried to kill himself.
She basically says, like, asks him why he was trying to kill himself.
Yeah,
like,
and
why were you trying to jump off the bridge or something?
But the way she phrases it is, like, not even as a question. It's, like, something that he would just answer in passing.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I noticed when you were trying to kill yourself, you left the thing on. And he's like, oh, yeah, sorry. Like, it's something like that.
Yeah.
And that makes her catch him. And then she immediately, like, flips shit on him and takes the money that he had earned to try to pay her back for all the hearing aids that he destroyed. And she's going to set it on fire. And she's like, if you don't promise that you're not going to kill yourself, I am going to set all this money on fire, because this money means nothing to me in light of your life, you know. Very emotional scene.
It was.
I think I probably teared up at that part.
I definitely did.
Oh boy, there's so much to this movie. Like, I feel like we're at the very beginning far.
We are at the very
Like, there's just so much that happens. I mean, to kind of summarize the next... Because from this point, like, all that early stuff I had a lot to say analytically about. From that point forward, it's more about, like, there's basically two plots to this film. There's the plot about the main characters reacquainting themselves and developing a romance.
Yeah, it's like there's a love story part, and then the B plot is the friendship plot.
And the love story plot involves the families of the characters.
Yes.
Who are good. Like,
the love story plot is a good movie.
Yeah.
The friend plot would make an okay generic teen drama anime.
That's the whole issue. You put into... You can stop watching this video now if you're already bored. But, like, this is the issue. I'm going to split this clip real quick. The issue with this film is that the love story is really interesting. Because both characters are really likable. They're very self-sacrificing.
I don't like the deaf girl that much.
All right,
I
this
loved
is what
her
I wanted
at the
to get
beginning,
into. Yeah.
But she would have been the character for me to grasp onto and to like relate to and have more of an intense emotional reaction to the film if I had a character I could connect to with the same level that he did.
Yeah.
So I was really hoping that like the female character would have been someone I could relate to on that level. But like, she's deaf, so you can't really say like, oh, she's a weak character. Yeah. But she's weak character-wise.
Well, a lot of her character is
all about like
that she is deaf. Yeah.
Yeah. And she blames herself a little bit too much, and I don't know how realistic of a character she really is.
So would you say that what bothered you is that she is so quick to like forgive and forget with this guy?
That definitely didn't help.
Yeah.
That took me out of the experience because like,
she immediately... well, it's funny that you feel that way because while I don't know if that's as realistic, I admire that ability to say, oh, you're clearly a different man. So, like, let's start from there. Like meeting... Because when she first meets him, she is terrified.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say my problem with it is how quickly it seems romantic. Like, I don't have a problem with the idea of her giving him a second chance as a human being. Like, if this movie had more of a period of them, like, connecting over the fact that they were both, like, bullied and, like the traumas that they went through, and, like, that now they are two people who can understand each other, Like... if there's a reason that they should become romantic, that would be the reason. That these two people both have kind of been through this hardship. And, like, for him to tell her, like, here's what... Like, not only do I regret what happened, but, like, I understand it because it happened to me, too. And, like, I want to help you to be... Like, if they had grown more together... But instead it's more like, she forgives him, they start hanging out... And then, like, immediately she's infatuated with him. Like, from, like, the second or third time they meet, it's pretty clear that she's got a crush on him. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. Like, it's a bit sudden to suddenly fall in love with a guy who once was an asshole. He just
falls in love with her. Yeah. Like, instantly, as soon as he sees her, basically.
Would you say so?
I think that he starts developing, like, is attracted to her as soon as he sees her.
Yeah, I'd say that the romance progresses a little faster than makes sense.
I mean, I didn't really have that much of a problem with it initiating.
Yeah.
Like, with them becoming romantic interests, because they do see the world in a similar way. Like, they're both depressed people.
But they don't really explore that together
but they like, can see it in each other. Maybe.
I just feel like... This is, like, indicative of your issue that she forgives him so quickly and, like, doesn't seem to, like, hold a grudge about this bullying.
It was really hard to get invested in her character because the way she kind of handled with the fallout of everything, I just something that I wouldn't find admirable, I guess, in another person.
Yeah.
And I kind of see her as a weak female character.
Just in that she's too quick to accept things, or like
what
do you want her to do?
I don't know if I necessarily want a romance with a deaf girl and a depressed guy. I don't know if that's something that I can really get a lot of enjoyment out of watching.
Just because
like the concept, they have a beautiful relationship together, and I appreciate it. But it was hard for me to get invested in their love life, I guess.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like there was. I was kind of just sad that there wasn't a character that I felt like I could relate to a whole lot in this film. Yeah. When it was a story basically kind of experimenting with different personalities and how people like.
Yeah.
Have different.
I don't know.
By
the end of the movie, not one of the characters is.
By the end of the movie, I kind of felt like I wouldn't want to be friends with any of these characters.
I wouldn't either. I would not either. But I mean, I related to the main guy a lot. But like, oh man, like the thing with the deaf girl, like with his relationship with her, because throughout most of the opening part of the movie, it feels like he literally just wants a friend. Like, I didn't really see it as that romantic at first. Like, I saw it as he just sees an opportunity to connect with someone, and it seems to be going well. And so he just, like even when the sister pretends to be a boyfriend, and he completely falls for it because he's an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
Totally just brain dead when it comes to love, right? And he just kind of accepts that and wants to be her friend anyways.
I thought that was a really interesting like way to play off the relationship.
Yeah.
Like you could really kind of see what his goals were in rekindling like a kind of bond.
He's not trying to fuck her.
Her.
He just wants to be friends, you know?
Yeah, but like I still get under the impression that he does kind of still want to fuck her.
I mean, I'm sure he'd like to fuck her, but I don't know. This character is such a dunce that it maybe didn't even cross his mind.
Yeah.
And it's weird because this only comes through in little bits, and that's another one of my issues with this movie is that there is anime cliche living under the surface.
And that really bothered me a lot.
Yes.
That took me out of the experience.
And it's only weird because the movie so doesn't seem like it would be that it's so well directed and beautiful looking, and the scenes that are good are like a film.
Yeah. And then those moments just cheapen it.
Yeah, there's the idiotic misunderstandings where the main character is just dumb. Like, first of all, the deaf girl's younger sister, I'm mad neither of us can remember their name. I think her name is Shoko, right?
Yeah.
Shoko?
Shoko, probably.
Shoko's little sister pretends to be her boyfriend. First of all, she is like 10 and is very obviously, like, even if you thought it was a boy, there's no way that he's her boyfriend. Yeah. You know, like, that is not a thing. So him wholesale buying into that and like honestly believing that for like a while, pretty dumb. Could look past that. Then there's a moment later in the movie where the girl tries to confess to him and she yells Suki, which he interprets as
the moon.
Suki, which means the moon. And so he is like, oh, the moon, yeah, it is pretty. And it's like, you know, because that in itself wouldn't be that big of a problem. Like, just, he misunderstood. But, like, that misunderstanding is going to matter in the plot. Yeah. That, like, if they had if he had understood her at that time, none of this bad stuff that's going to happen would have happened.
I hated that moment so much.
Yeah.
That, like, it kind of, like, cracked. Like, my brain kind of just cracked at that moment. Yeah. I was like, oh, God. And everybody in the audience laughed. Like, I think that also kind of lessened my enjoyment of the film is just when the audience would, like, react to things. And it's just like...
I wasn't really bothered by any of the reactions.
It bothered me a lot, because, like, a lot of times they laughed. It was, like, something that I didn't think was funny enough to warrant me laughing. And then I was like, wait...
It was never something that I laughed at, but always something that I thought, okay, that's an acceptable moment to laugh. I'm not offended that you laughed at this moment.
I get offended.
There are a lot of movies I've seen where I have been offended by the laughter. Where I've been like, this is not a joke. Like, why are you all laughing at this, you know? But in this movie, I was like, the moments where they laughed seemed like they were moments that were intended to be funny, you know? Nobody laughed at a character, like, jumping off of a bridge or something, you know?
I just feel like there were, like, specific moments in the film where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be, like, comedy, like, the comedy between dosages of, like, depressing hardcore shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. it was like a roller coaster that I didn't want to be on because it was too long. And I was
It was very long.
oh,
Well, the
just
moment,
go away.
like, I was pretty deep into the film for probably the first 45 minutes to an hour. Like, I thought the backstory was all fine. It went on maybe a little longer than it needed to, but it's fine. It got us really into, like, we really understand the characters and their situation, you know? Then him meeting Deaf Girl, I'm okay with everything up to this point. Him interacting with the sister is really fun. The sister's an interesting character. I like the idea that, like, she was, like, running away from home and stowing away in, like, a play place. And then she kind of becomes friends with him and develops a respect for him and goes from trying to push him away from her sister to actively wanting him to get with her sister because she sees that that's going to work out for them. And this whole part of the movie I'm into, the moment there's a specific moment for me when things started to go into uh-oh territory, and it was the introduction of the black-haired girl.
Yeah.
And I know you like her.
She's like the only female character I liked in the movie.
I was immediately deeply concerned when she showed up because she changes what the film's about.
Yeah.
Instantly. Because up till this point, like, first so it's just him and Deaf Girl hanging out. They're becoming friends. They're becoming a part of each other's life. And this is already a long section of the movie. Like, this feels like we are, like, this is what the movie is at this point. Because it just goes on forever. So, like, I'm already deep invested in this movie. At one point, the Deaf Girl's like, hey, my friend from elementary school, I've lost connection with her. I want to become friends with her again. So they go and become friends with that girl again, and it's just kind of, it seems like a one-off scene. Like, oh, hey, let's catch up. And that's fine. But then we introduce black-haired girl, and she immediately goes right back to bullying Deaf Girl. And then the movie changes into, now it's about trying to make all these people become friends.
Yeah.
And this
Friends
is where
again.
the plot got weird to me because, okay, first of all, like, when black-haired girl bullied Deaf Girl, what I expected to happen in that scene, because I didn't know what the movie was going to be like yet, what I expected to happen was they go, oh, I guess you can't win all of them, let's never talk to that bitch again. You know? Like, that would have been my reaction is, oh, you are still a child? Go away. You know? You haven't grown up enough to know that doing this is wrong and you're 18? I'm not talking to you anymore, you know? But then we get into this weird spot where suddenly the relationships of these characters that they had when they were children are, like, massively important to them. Where they're like, where she's all mad about how, like, oh, I just wanted things to go back to the way they were. And it's like, you haven't talked to this guy in, like, 6 years? Tell me how many people that you knew in elementary school you were still talking to at the end of high school.
None, because I moved.
Same. I had moved 18 times by then. Like, and I had, like, 10 other sets of friends by then.
Yeah.
You know, like, I have, those kids have me on Facebook, I don't talk to them, you know, like, I don't know them. Their lives went in a totally different direction. Like, main character guy is a whole different person from how he was back then. And this girl's like, I want to bring things back to the way they were. And it's like, how long did you even know each other as kids?
Well, it's obvious that she, like, liked him a whole lot.
You think? Was
yeah,
she, like,
black-haired girl was what?
Maybe.
Yeah, she was super into him.
I don't get why it was suddenly the most important thing in all of their lives to be friends again.
I don't either. And that's where we get into subplot B.
Yeah,
like,
and
at that point, it's like subplot B is inevitable.
So and
that's what this movie is going to be about for the rest of it.
So I would say that this movie, it's 2 hours, 20 minutes. The first 45 minutes is a film I was completely enjoying. Then it becomes 2 films. One that I continued enjoying, and one that I had a lot of questionable thoughts about. Because B-plot was Anohana. It is literally Anohana. It's a group of kids who were friends when they were children. Something tragic happened that split the group. They're all moody in their own ways. They're all damaged, broken people, and they got to become friends again. and I don't give a fuck because they're teenagers.
Yeah, and the characters aren't developed well at all. Like, there's
No.
certain characters, like the blonde girl, who was just a really generic, like,
Totally
high school
annoying.
goody-goody character who had no personality.
She
Her
had not
boyfriend-
changed in the slightest since she was a kid.
No, and then she brings in her boyfriend who has, like, 3 lines of dialogue in the whole movie.
Yeah, totally worthless character.
They bring in, like, all these other characters, and it's like, we don't have enough time to go into their backstories, so what's the point?
And I know this is why a lot of people who like the manga don't like the movie, is because they're like, well, they didn't develop the characters. Like, they tried to put too much plot into this movie. And I'm like, what I would have done is cut
that
them.
whole entire
Cut them
fucking
all.
thing out. Cut it out.
Everyone's like, oh, this movie should have been a TV show. I'm like, no,
No.
because I don't want to watch that
no,
TV
because
show.
the teen drama thing is, like, you
Totally
could make this into
uninteresting.
a beautiful story that's never been done before.
Yeah.
Just with the romance aspect, just with the families, just with them dealing with their depression, and maybe have, like, 1 or 2 side characters as friends.
Right.
But you didn't have to have
Fat
those
Kid was
characters.
fine. Fat Kid's a fun character.
He's okay. He's comic relief. I didn't think that he was that special, but
well,
people
you're not
liked him. So
you're not
whatever.
a guy. You probably don't have bros. He's a good bro.
I understand. I can appreciate that he's a bro.
Yeah.
It's just not a character that was specifically appealing to me.
I love bros because I
didn't think that when he was on screen he was that funny.
He's not okay. The scene where he
The
smokes
scene with the fry was great.
that was hilarious.
That was gold.
That was where I was sold on his character. Because the thing is that I hung out, like, I was a nerdy guy. So all the guys I hung out with were nerdy guys. But the thing about, like, nerdy guys is that they want to be masculine guys. Like, nerdy dudes want to be, like, especially hot-blooded nerdy guys. Like, the guys who watch, like, Gurren Lagann and, like, Super Robot shows are all people who, like, envision themselves as, like, a hyper-masculine, cool badass. So that's kind of how I see him, is, like, he's this nerdy little dweeb, but as soon as he has a friend, the way he wants to be friends is, like, we beat each other up and smoke cigarettes and, like, do cool shit, you know? And that's why I think he was really endearing to me.
He definitely was needed in the story, too, to break up a lot of, like, the dramatic elements. And that one scene with the fry, the cinematography in that was amazing. Like, the way his ass was, like, half up, and it was, like, fucking hysterical. That was amazing.
Again, the early part of the movie has so many great scenes.
Yeah.
But as it goes, it feels more and more typical. And it also feels more and more rushed. Because suddenly we've got this B-plot that is just barreling along about all these kids and their problems that I don't give a fuck about, you know? And, like, when we get to the point where they have the big dramatic bridge scene where the main character tells off all the other characters, that is the scene I have the most contentious feelings about. Because I totally love what the main character does in that scene. Because I relate to it. The way that he just tells basically everybody's trying to make things right, and he doesn't want to deal with any of them. Because he's like, you have all fucked up and wronged me too much. So instead of trying to continue this conversation, I'm just going to insult each of you with a very pinpoint accurate insult that will make you hate me. So you'll all go away and never talk to me again. That's my deal. That's what I would do. You know, if I have a problem with somebody and I feel like they're doing more harm than good to me, I'm not about let's repair the relationship. I'm about let me hit you with something that will get you out of my life, you know? And then refocus on the people who I care about, you know, and fill my life with them. And I feel like you've experienced this firsthand, like being the person, like the way the scene after that where he is hanging out with the girl literally every day.
Single day.
I was like, yeah, that's relatable for me. Cause that's me, you know, I'd like burn away my other friends and then be like, all right, person who I actually want around, let's hang out all the time because I have no other friends now because I can't tolerate people, you know? Like, I would describe the main character of this movie as someone for whom interacting with other people mostly brings pain. You know, like, his interactions with others, the most common thing he gets out of it is pain, either for him or for someone else, you know? And it's very rare he can find someone who doesn't result in pain, and that's Deaf Girl. And through the whole movie, their relationship's fine. There's never a hiccup in their relationship, other than that they both are suicidal, and blame themselves too much. But, like, their relationship's perfectly fine. It's that everyone else is just a source of nothing but discomfort, And that's how I feel about you versus everybody else I deal with in the world. So that's why it was so relatable for me.
Yeah.
But then there's the other aspect of the bridge scene, which is that he tells off Pigtail's girl and her boyfriend, and they fuck off, and boyfriend's all like, I'm disappointed in you, or whatever. And I'm like, you don't even know him! You guys have traded, like, 3 words together!
I don't know. I thought,
who the fuck is that guy?
Boyfriend guy wasn't needed, but just
No.
for that one moment where he told him off, I was like, oh, I understand why he's here. And he's like...
It was weird, though, because of the fact that they always... You could never figure out what his deal was. Like, when they introduce him, he seems like an asshole.
He's just, like, an outsider who wants to be a part of, like, this big bromance that's going on.
Like, if I read into what the character is, I can get it. Like, I've met that guy. Like, yeah, he's just a boyfriend, but he cares about his girl, so he wants to be a part of her business, I guess. But, like, up until that point, I had no sensation that he considered himself friends with the main character guy. But then, at that moment, when he's acting all disappointed, like, if he, at the level of connection they had, I would have expected him to just walk away. Like, he doesn't know you. He's not really a part of this. He should just fuck off, But no, he's, like, inserting himself in, which I guess is exactly what Guy calls him out on. Like, this isn't really your business. Yeah. And I felt the same way. I was like, yeah, fuck off, dude. Like, you have nothing to do with this. Neither does Braid's girl, who I don't know anything about. She just seems... like shit. She's just shit.
The problem with that scene is that bridge scene is great. But in order to get that bridge scene, we needed the amusement park scene.
Which was totally lame.
Which I feel like we could just cut them both out. And it
would
just make the movie shorter.
Because the amusement park scene is just so much of characters I don't care about, standing around, becoming friends. Like, I mean, what this movie would have needed to make both of those scenes work is make me care about the friends. Like,
at all.
I respect the 2 main characters, and, like, really what it should have felt like is that black-haired girl was, like, the bitch out of the group. Like, if I really had the sensation that they had a close connection with the other friends, like, that there was really something to gain by all of them being friends, and, like, this woman was trying to, like, put a fork in a good thing, then I'd be more, like, inclined to get invested. But, like, when all the friends left, I felt like it was a win? Maybe this is just me being a fucking weirdo, but, like, that moment where he burns all of them on the bridge, I was like, yeah, good riddance. Like, this is how I deal with problems.
That's not how the story is supposed to be. Like,
I don't want friends. Friends are... what did he get out of having those friends? I mean, I guess he learns to, like, look people in the eyes again. But, like, do you think that... Here's my question for you. Do you think those kids kept hanging out long after that?
I don't think so.
No.
I'm somebody who doesn't really value friendships much either, so...
I mean, I value my real friends. Like, I value close personal connections.
Yes. I don't value friendships where it's, we go to the same school because we go to the same school.
And let's go to the amusement park on weekends. Like, no.
I don't,
Like, the kind of friendships I care about is, like, we can sit around in the day and play video games together, and that's fun. Or, like...
And it was the scenes like that just kind of took me out of the whole entire thing, on top of scenes where it felt like an anime cliche, and I was just, like, thinking about that deep shit, because this movie, like, makes you think.
Yeah.
And then I just, like, lost track of...
The whole amusement park scene was definitely, like... That was where it started to feel like Anohana or, like, any other rom-com. But then you'll bounce from that into some great shit. Like, when... So the main characters go to a fireworks display. Deaf girl leaves. She goes home. She's gonna jump off the balcony. There's a little bit of, like, weird mystical bullshit in this movie where, like, the characters have some kind of mental link where they can, like, sense when the other person's in danger.
Like twins.
It's kind of swept under the rug just because it's like, it's a dramatic movie. Don't... let's just say that, like they could have just had him happen to go to her house, but no, there's, like, a little ringing of the church bells in the ears that makes it happen.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't mind that much. It's dumb, but whatever. But, like, he runs out to the balcony. She's about to jump. Great scene. Love the build-up of the screaming and the emotions. He catches her as she's falling, and in the process of pulling her up, he falls down. He's in a coma now. And it's like a good 15 minutes of the movie or so that he's not in. And this is where we get to see the fallout with all the other characters. And the scene outside the hospital is heart-wrenching. When the characters are all just, like, fighting. It's like deaf girl's fighting dark-haired girl, who I felt like didn't deserve to be there at all. Like, she barely knows main character guy. The last time they've spoken is a falling out. Why is she at the hospital? Why does she care so much about him?
Because she's in love with him.
She was in love with him when they were kids. Why is she in love with him now?
I don't know. I don't hate her character. And I'm glad she was there.
Find her really weird.
She causes, like, drama, and she's at least a strong female.
Right.
Like, a strong female character versus,
She's willful, we'll say.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to say that she's not strong.
No, I don't think so either, but, like, there's a lot of problems I have with her character that make it, like, hard for me to give a shit about her problems. Because I feel like a lot of her problems come from her own, like, she's already accepted defeat kind of mentality.
That's true.
And
that's a very Japanese mentality.
Yeah, I think, like, a lot of my problems with her just have to do more with, like I'm from the West,
the fact that
so
she's
I
not
appreciate
getting up
like
and
a
fighting.
stronger, like I appreciate strong female characters. Not that like she's not strong because she's having to deal with a whole lot, but she's not a character who appeals to me or somebody.
She's not like
who I like look up to or want to see myself.
Black-haired girl is like putting action behind what she wants to happen.
Black-haired girl is a real bitch.
Yeah.
She's real. She says the truth. She doesn't beat around the bush, and I appreciate that more than weakness, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I saw it differently because I'm a big fan of self-sacrificing characters, like characters who are constantly putting one another's needs over their own to the detriment. Like for instance in Shirayuki Hime, which is a show where like the main guy and main girl are in love with each other, and like Shirayuki will be like, oh, I'm going to do something for your benefit at the cost of myself. And he's like, that's not to my benefit because what I want is for you to be happy. So, like, unless we can both be happy, we're just damaging each other by damaging ourselves, you know? And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. I wouldn't really say that's necessarily what's going on in this movie, but, like, when I see that kind of self-sacrifice, I'm a little bit more like, yeah, but, like, I do agree that it's really more the guy I was invested in than the girl.
What was the deaf girl's name again?
Shoko.
Okay. I just, like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, the amount of depth I've thought about just Shoko and, like, her personality and stuff kind of show that she's a very rounded out character with flaws and stuff. So she's good as like a story character. It's just not somebody that I could relate to or who I could get that invested behind.
I really, to get back to the scene we were talking about,
yeah,
I really love that her mom comes out and beats the shit out of black-haired girl.
Yeah, that's great.
That is one of the best moments
the moms
in the movie.
in this movie are great. Speaking
They're
of strong
awesome.
female
They're
characters.
awesome moms.
Yeah.
Because Deaf Girl's mom, we barely see her, but we immediately know what she's about. Is that, like, she's very protective, and her daughter's been through a lot, and she is not having it.
No,
like,
she's done with the bullshit.
Yeah, no, she is not going to stand by and let her daughter get fucked with. She will fuck you twice as hard.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot. And then the other mom is more of the just, like, you know, she's doing her fucking best with what she's got. And she's a very nice lady, and
she
very
loves her
helpful.
family, and he loves his mom.
I love that.
And I love
there's this mystery character in the film because he has an older sister who we never see, but his older sister has a daughter who's like mixed black and Japanese, and the husband is like some huge black dude. Like it's literally what's his name from Taibo.
Oh gosh.
The fucking I can't remember his name. He's made reference to a lot in anime for some reason.
Yeah.
Like Taibo comes up in anime all the time, especially in Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. But like it's like Billy Blanks? Is that his name?
Maybe.
Something like that.
I don't remember.
But yeah, so like there's this little girl throughout the whole movie, just this little like black girl, and you're like, why is she his niece? And then you find out. which that black guy is shown early in the movie.
Yeah, but you don't realize.
You don't know why. Yeah, because when it happened, I was like, "What the fuck was that?" Because it's like he as a kid, he opens a door and there's like a big black dude there, and he's like just screams, and I'm like, "What the fuck was that about?" Yeah, it's a sister's boyfriend, and the sister's never shown, but there's a cute little girl. The families are just always a joy to be around, and so like all of the scenes and drama involving the families, I was really into. I loved Shoko's little sister. I loved the moms. I loved that drama. I loved the suicide. You know, suicide's cool and interesting, but then this other story, I just didn't care. I really didn't care. And in the end, when like the friends, so at the end of the movie, there's the whole scene where he's in the hospital. All this dramatic shit happens. Finally, he gets out of the hospital. Him and Shoko meet on the bridge, and they're like, confirmed. We like each other. We've been through a lot. Dramatic moment. I would have ended the movie there.
Me too.
I would have ended the 90-minute movie that has all the other shit cut out of it there. But unfortunately, the other plot is kind of the, like, it's kind of the A plot by this point. And so we have, like, another 20 minutes of all the friends making up. And blonde girl made 1,000 paper cranes for this guy she barely knows or has ever cared about. Her and her boyfriend made almost 1,000 paper cranes for a guy they barely have ever known or cared about. I had to stop the clip again. Other friend who never mattered is there. Friend of Shoko, who when she was younger she was a coward. Oh. And as an adult she stopped being
like she had some cute outfits. That's the only thing I could say about her. I liked her boots.
This is her character throughout the movie. We are reintroduced to her as an adult, and she tells us, like, yeah, I used to be a coward as a kid, but hanging out with black-haired girl really helped me to come out of my shell.
Did you think that she was transgender?
No.
Because, like,
I did not get that impression at all.
She was talking about how she was a coward, and how she's like, oh, I'm a coward, and how she was, like, wearing men's clothes, and, like,
was she wearing men's clothes, or just, like...
I don't know. I don't know, but I thought like there could have been
tomboy.
There could have been some like maybe she's transgender.
Maybe, but like this is all
That's
of her
me
character.
Reading way too
all
much
of her character throughout the movie is she shows up and explains to us, I used to be a coward, but I was changed. Then later she explains to us, turns out I still am a coward.
Yeah.
And then later on in the movie she explains to us, oh, I'm again gonna try to not be a coward. And I'm like, we have never even seen her be a coward. We've never seen this transition happen at all.
Because like she's like a coward about like coming
out
about it.
That's some real headcanon shit you're bringing up right here. Trying real hard to justify this.
Sorry.
She talks so much about her own arc that we never see. I didn't care about her at all. I didn't care about Twin Tails girl. I didn't care about red-haired guy.
I especially didn't care about the pigtail girl because she felt way too real from like the actual bitches that like I knew in high school.
Yeah.
Who like.
I didn't. Well, here's the thing. Here's what's weird about her to me.
Like her at all.
I just remembered. I brought this up when we were leaving the theater that she never gets a arc.
No.
Her thing is, as a kid, she participated in the bullying of Shoko, but won't admit it. And she's, like, really offended when people imply that she was a part of it. As an adult, she continues to have that mentality. She keeps insisting, I didn't do anything wrong. And in the big bridge scene, that's what she gets called out on for. Like, the main character guy's like, fuck you, you did something. We don't see her again until the end of the movie when she shows up with 1,000 paper cranes and is like, I super care about you. No one ever calls her out again. Like, she never gets that moment of... oh, I realized that I did do something wrong. And to me, I'd be like, I'm not going to hang out with this fake-ass bitch.
No, never.
You know? Like,
I would never want to hang out with her. She is a fake-ass bitch.
Yeah. But, and I wouldn't want to hang out with dark-haired girl either, because she's a bully.
I wouldn't want to hang out with any of them. That's kind of the conclusion that I drew, is like, this is a movie about friends, but I wouldn't want to be friends with any of them, and I don't care about their friendship.
Yeah, me neither. And so, like, the whole last part of the movie, I was very much like, I want this to be over, because this is 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And I realize it sounds like we've been ragging on this movie a lot, Because I think the more interesting stuff is the problems
definitely,
with it.
because it's really easy to see what's good about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, it is perilously well directed. Like, it's hard to put into words the difference between, like, a good movie and a great movie when it comes to directing. Like, this is a great movie in terms of that. Like, there are so many scenes that are just orchestrated wonderfully, where, like, the musical cue comes in at the just right moment, you know, the shot composition conveys something about the character's emotions, you know, or about the differences in their relationships. There's this whole movie's told out of sequence in really interesting ways. It manipulates time in really effective ways. I was constantly impressed by the way time skips happen and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot to be impressed about in this movie, and I was enjoying it, like, most of the time. Even though I didn't like this subplot, I only kind of really concluded how much I didn't like it at the end, where I was like, okay, I still don't give a shit about these characters, so I wish they'd been cut. I really don't like the amusement park scene at all, just because it felt like
it was
so generic.
Long and so generic.
You know, I don't want to be reminded of teen dramas when I'm watching what is otherwise like an Oscar-worthy film.
Yeah.
You know, and then I dive into like, oh, it's anime. I'm watching a TV anime. You know. So every time someone's like, "Oh, it should have been a TV anime," I'm like, then you would just get the worst parts of it.
Yeah.
Because the best parts of it are the production values, the stuff that couldn't have been done on TV, the structure of the movie. Like, you couldn't get that opening My Generation montage, wrong music, but it should, you know, you wouldn't get the whole fleshed out opening bullying part of it if it was a TV show. You wouldn't get. You certainly wouldn't get all the fucking hand animation. Like, that's one of the most exceptional things about this movie is that they animated shitloads of sign language, and, like, hands are one of the hardest things to animate. So, like, putting a constant, and then doing it from, oh man, people don't realize how difficult animating from perspective is. Like, it's one thing to animate, like, a person waving in 2D, but if you film it from this angle, and it's a person waving, like, it's a whole other can of worms. Or, like, if the camera's moving and you're animating it, and it's, like, a constantly shifting perspective, like, there are even scenes in this movie where I could tell they actually were taking shortcuts to avoid hand animating. Like, where it was, like, they'd linger on the other character for a little while. Like, we don't have to animate every single time they use sign language in the movie, but it's a really impressive amount. And people were telling me, like, could have just, like, I don't see how it's that much more impressive than, like, Kyoto Animation's TV work. And I'm like, then you don't know what animation is, because it's, like, a whole other world.
This definitely needed to be a movie for it to be this great. Because, like, the story, if this wasn't animated and was badly directed, would just be a Lifetime fucking movie.
Right. And I think that the people who really cherish the manga, like, I'm sure the manga is a better told version of the story that it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's going to
be a more complete, more rounded out
But it won't be one I want to consume as much.
But it's not going to be, like, a fucking visual masterpiece like this
Exactly.
was.
Like, it's just going to be a great teen drama manga, which I have no interest in reading.
Whatsoever.
I want to watch a Naoko Yamada film, regardless of what it happens to be about, you know, because she's, like, one of my favorite directors, and I think she's absolutely a genius, you know. And that comes through in this movie, in spite of all the problems. So I still came away from it. I gave it, like, a strong 8.
You gave it a 9, didn't you?
Yeah, the strong 8 is a 9 on my mouse scores. But after thinking about it, I felt like I would probably reduce the score.
Yeah.
Because when we came out of the theater, I was saying 9, you were saying 8.
8 for sure.
And for me, what usually causes me to adjust my scores is when I start comparing it to other shows. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is like a strong 8 to a 9. But then I'm thinking about, like, what have I given a strong 8 to? Like, Samurai Champloo? I definitely enjoy that show way more than this movie. You know, like, there's a lot of shows, like, if I actually look at my list and I start trying to place this, I feel like it's quickly gonna lapse into a light 8, you know? It's definitely at least an 8 out of 10. I couldn't score it lower than that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just isn't very personally appealing. I think you were talking about that before.
Yeah, this is not like my thing. This wasn't made for me. I couldn't get invested in the characters. Didn't give a shit about the friends. Didn't give a lot. I didn't really care that much for the romantic aspect of it. It was a little too depressing for me. I would never want to sit in a movie theater and pay to watch this movie again. But I feel like everybody should watch it because it's a work of directing that's like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
This is a work of art, and you should like watch it just on the basis that it's
especially if you're someone who like cares a lot about anime and where it is and where it's going and who's important.
This is definitely an important piece that everybody should see.
It's gonna be one of the more respected films to come out of this decade for sure. Like it's gonna be up there with Your Name as a film that people are still talking about, and probably even more respected than Your Name because it had fewer glaring plot holes. But though it does have glaring plot holes, like the weird spiritual connections of the characters that lead them to each other.
Everything has plot holes.
But like, yeah, I would say this is a very normie movie.
Yeah, it has mass appeal.
Yeah, which is a good thing for anime.
Because this is an anime that it needs to have mass appeal. People are going to go see it. If people are going to go to an actual movie theater
this movie not only has a chance to make back its budget, but it has a chance to like bring new people into anime. You know, someone asked me, should I show this movie to my mom? And I was like, yes. This is probably in the top 5 of mom movies in anime. Like, I would say Wolf Children, Koe no Katachi, that's like the top 2 of like movies to show your mom. And maybe some other Mamoru Hosoda film or something. Like, this is, show this to your mom. Show this to the people who you're trying to get to respect anime, to have a deeper appreciation for it. If there's anyone who you can convince to watch a movie by telling them it's important and has, like, a strong message about disabled people, show them this movie and they're going to cream their fucking pants and, like, start a hashtag about it or something. Like, you know... yeah, but overall, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. I would not. You had said after we left the theater, you were like, I don't want to have to watch this again.
It was requiring a lot of effort on my part to sit in the movie theater full of like.
I think there's
people and.
I think there's scenes from this I want to see again and see. Like,
yeah, but I wouldn't want to sit.
I don't
want to
sit through the whole movie again.
Like, there's like specific scenes, like when the best friend character is playing with the French fry cigarette. Like, that's great. I would watch that over and over again.
I just everything. The scene with the mom burning the money.
Yeah, that's a great scene too.
Really, I could watch the whole first 45 minutes or so. Everything up until reintroducing the black-haired girl and going down that road. Like, all of that. When I was watching it, I was thinking, like, oh, I'd love to go over this movie with a fine-tooth comb, you know, because there's so much to like in it. But then as it went on, it was just like, you couldn't ask me to watch this twice in a month, you know, because it's just too exhausting. All right, I think we're repeating ourselves at this point, so that's our opinions of Koe no Katachi. I hope you enjoyed. This came out way longer than I think either of us expected. Yes. But I'm glad we decided to do it as its own video.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't wait any longer because I would have been like,
forgotten everything about
what happened in this movie.
Bye. Miguel out.